The Donner Party, a tale of survival, desperation, and the darkest corners of the human spirit. Imagine embarking on a journey in pursuit of the American dream, only to find yourself trapped in a frozen wilderness, facing starvation, relentless blizzards, and the ultimate test of human endurance. This is the true and chilling tale of the Donner Party, a story that continues to captivate, horrify, and remind us of the sheer will to survive, even at a gruesome cost. In the mid-1800s, the dream of a bountiful California spurred hundreds of families to make the perilous journey across the United States. Wagon trains braved the treacherous trails in search of prosperity, enduring months of hardship, but rarely anticipating catastrophe. Yet for one group, the infamous Donner Party, the dream would become a nightmare. Misfortune, ill-fated decisions, and a merciless winter turned their quest for a better life into a desperate fight for survival. This video will take you through every harrowing twist of the Donner Party saga, from their hopeful departure in Springfield, Illinois, to their fateful decision to follow an unproven shortcut, and the tragic sequence of events that left them stranded in the snow-blanketed Sierra Nevada. We'll explore the psychological and physical torment they endured, the brutal choices they were forced to make, and the rescue missions that struggled to save them. By the end, you'll find yourself questioning what you would do if faced with such unimaginable circumstances. The 1840s were a time of great migration across the United States, fueled by manifest destiny, the belief that Americans were divinely ordained to expand from the Atlantic to the Pacific. California, with its promise of fertile lands and a better future, drew thousands of pioneers. The journey was grueling but achievable, as long as one followed well-established trails and traveled in groups large enough to provide safety from natural hazards and hostile encounters. The Donner and Reed families were among the ambitious settlers seeking a new beginning. George Donner, a successful farmer, and James Reed, an entrepreneur, were eager to take their families west. On April 16, 1846, they departed from Springfield, Illinois, with optimism, joining a larger wagon train led by experienced guides. As they made their way to Independence, Missouri, the gateway to the Oregon and California trails, their spirits remained high, unaware of the challenges ahead. At Fort Bridger in Wyoming, the Donner Party made a crucial decision that would seal their fate. Lansford Hastings, a trail promoter and author of The Emigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, had published an enticing but unproven route called Hastings Cutoff. Hastings claimed this shortcut would save 300 to 400 miles by bypassing the established path through Fort Hall and instead traversing the Wasatch Mountains and the Great Salt Lake Desert. Eager to reach California quickly, George Donner and James Reed chose to take this gamble, despite warnings from experienced mountain men, including James Clyman, who had traveled the region and strongly advised against it. Unbeknownst to the Donner Party, Hastings had never fully scouted his route. As they departed Fort Bridger, they were met with a note from Hastings himself, pinned to a tree, advising them to wait for further guidance. However, as days passed and Hastings failed to appear, they pressed forward with blind faith in the trailblazers' written instructions. The shortcut proved treacherous from the start. The Wasatch Mountains were far more rugged than Hastings had described. The Donner Party was forced to blaze a new trail through dense forests, spending weeks clearing trees and moving boulders just to make minimal progress. Exhaustion set in, and tempers flared as frustrations grew. The group's unity began to fray under the strain, but they had little choice but to keep moving. By the time they emerged from the Wasatch Mountains, they had lost valuable time, nearly 3 weeks, and were dangerously behind schedule. What awaited them next was even more unforgiving: the Great Salt Lake Desert. Believing it would take only 2 days to cross, they set out with limited water supplies, but the desert's alkali flats were deceptive. The sand turned into a thick, miry paste that bogged down their wagons, and the sun beat down mercilessly. It took nearly a week to make it through, by which time many of their oxen had perished from exhaustion and thirst. Desperation began to seep into the hearts of the travelers, and their supplies were critically low. By early October, the Donner Party reached the Humboldt River, battered and weakened but still determined. They were now more than a month behind schedule, and winter was closing in. The group was fraught with conflict. Arguments erupted over dwindling resources and strained relationships. Then tragedy struck again. At Iron Point, tensions boiled over when James Reed, in a dispute with a teamster named John Snyder, killed Snyder in self-defense. As punishment, the group banished Reed, forcing him to ride ahead alone though his family remained behind. Despite this turmoil, the party pressed on. By late October, they reached Truckee Lake, now known as Donner Lake, at the base of the Sierra Nevada just as the first heavy snowstorm hit. The pass they needed to cross was buried under 5 feet of snow, and their wagons could go no further. The unforgiving winter had trapped them, and they were now prisoners of the mountain. The Donner Party set up makeshift camps at Truckee Lake and Alder Creek. The conditions were horrendous. With their food supplies nearly exhausted, they resorted to boiling oxhide rugs to make a gelatinous, bitter soup. They ate boiled bones, bark, and any roots they could scavenge. Hunger gnawed at them constantly, and the freezing temperatures made survival a daily battle. Families huddled together in small, leaky cabins, desperately trying to stave off the cold. It wasn't long before the physical and psychological toll became unbearable. As the weeks dragged on, starvation loomed, and the settlers were faced with an unthinkable choice: to die or to resort to cannibalism. On December 16, 1846, 17 of the strongest members of the group, 10 men and 7 women, set out on snowshoes in a last-ditch effort to find help. This group would come to be known as the Forlorn Hope. They carried minimal provisions, hoping to traverse the mountains and reach Sutter's Fort. However, the journey proved more brutal than they could have imagined. Snow blindness afflicted many, and they were buffeted by fierce blizzards. As days turned into weeks, their food ran out. Desperation drove them to consider the unthinkable. When Patrick Dolan, one of the members, succumbed to hypothermia, the group reluctantly resorted to cannibalism. They vowed that no one would have to eat their own relatives, and they did everything possible to maintain some sense of humanity, even in their desperate state. By the time they stumbled into civilization, only 7 had survived, their souls scarred by the unimaginable ordeal they had endured. The news of the Donner Party's plight reached nearby settlements, and several rescue missions were organized. The first rescue party arrived at Truckee Lake in February 1847, nearly 4 months after the snow had trapped the settlers. What they found was a scene of horror: cabins buried under snow, emaciated survivors, and evidence of cannibalism. The rescuers had to make heart-wrenching decisions about whom to save, as they could only carry a limited number of people back to safety. Subsequent rescue missions faced similar difficulties. The rescuers carried children out of the mountains, their feet frostbitten and bleeding. Many survivors had to be left behind to await the next party, clinging to the hope that help would come. In total, 4 rescue attempts were needed to bring out the remaining survivors. Only 48 of the original 87 members made it to California, forever haunted by the memories of what they had witnessed and endured. The story of the Donner Party is more than a cautionary tale of poor decisions and bad luck. It is a testament to the resilience and desperation of the human spirit. It has become a part of American folklore, a tale that forces us to confront our most primal instincts. What drives a person to make unimaginable choices? How far would you go to survive? The Donner Party's ordeal sparked debates about leadership, the risks of blind ambition, and the human capacity for both hope and horror. It serves as a grim reminder of the thin veneer of civilization and the lengths to which people will go when faced with life and death. The Donner Party's journey is a haunting chapter of American history, marked by hope, turned to horror desperation, met with unthinkable choices, and the resilience of those who survived. It challenges us to ponder the depths of human endurance and the unimaginable decisions one might make when survival is the only goal. This is not a story of heroes or villains, but of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary and horrific circumstances. It serves as a sobering reminder of the fragility of human life and the consequences of ambition gone awry. A tale that echoes through the ages, asking each of us, what would you have done